Hello, Nyy'zai of Earth. My name is Nyy'zai'xyy'vai, and in this episode we're going to be going over your physiological cues. So these are the physiological cues that other people can read that let them know that you are a Nyy'zai. These are also the physiological cues that you're going to be able to see in yourself or in film, anytime you look at yourself, that allow you to see that and be like, holy crap, I'm a Nyy'zai. The basic idea is that the powers that you have, they give off signals. So the way that you gesture, the way that you move your head around, the way that you articulate, what your eyes are doing, all of these have to do with the things that are going on inside your head. So the powers, they do not just manifest within the psyche inwardly, but they also have external manifestations as well. The powers don't just give off cues based on the particular way that they're being used, but also the way that they're oriented in the psyche. We talked about before how as a Nyy'zai, then you have very unique powers. You are the only mojo that has Ni as a source while also in a compound relationship with Zai. This makes the signals that they give out unique. As a Nyy'zai, you have 4 powers that are in a unique hierarchy. Other mojos might have Nyy'zai'xyy'vai, and Vai, but you're the only mojo that actually has them in that ranking. So other mojos won't get momentum and modulation in the same way that you're getting them from your powers. So what should be paid attention to is the energy levels that you give off, as well as the general cues that you give off when using your powers. So as we talked about in human design, momentum gives you energy, and Ni and Zai are your momentum powers. But momentum is also a cue, because as you use your momentum, then there will be a visible increase in energy, confidence, and comfortability. And for those who are trained in mojo reading, they'll be able to see that. So momentum is both a phenomenon that's happening within your psyche, and it's also something that can be read. The same thing is true with modulation. As a Nyy'zai, Ji and Vai are your modulation powers. So when these powers are used, then there's going to be a noticeable curbing of your energy. There's going to be a noticeable lessening of your energy. A couple terms you're going to see me using a lot throughout this episode is natural state and altered state. And these are terms that you're going to hear kind of attached onto cues that have to do with whether these cues are momentum or modulation. So for example, anytime that you're engaging your momentum powers, they're going to have a natural state quality to them. Natural in the sense that they're more innate, more easy to use, more comfortable. They're more natural. And altered state, anytime the modulation powers are being activated in some way, then it's going to come with a cue that it's going to have what's called an altered state quality to it, meaning you're kind of going into an altered state, a different from natural state. So this will come with the curbing of energy. So in short, momentum is natural state and modulation is altered state. Let's start by talking about your Ni. So as a Nyy'zai, you have dancing eyes, the dancing eyes of a Ni mojo. However, your dancing eyes are very special. They're unique to you because they're the dancing eyes of a Nyy'zai, meaning Ni source, and they are also connected to your Zai. So whenever you see a Nyy'zai's eyes perk up, their carriage lift or their brow lifts, this is them doing their Ni, and it's always going to come with that dancing eye quality. Ni also manifests in the way the head moves and the shoulders move, and this is going to come with what's called a bobble quality to it. Bobble refers to kind of the unique way that the Ni mojos move, and it's going to be especially unique for you as not just a Ni alpha, but as a Nyy'zai. The way that they move, it has kind of almost like unseeable kind of energies are kind of permeating through them, and it's causing them to vibrate in this syncopated sort of way. Well, this is called bobble, and it's going to be unique to you as a Nyy'zai. So that comes in the way the head moves, shoulders, but also in the spine, the hips, and the entire body moves. As a Nyy'zai, your Ni is also going to be major momentum. And so both your Ni and Zai is momentum power. So they're both going to have natural state qualities to it. But Ni as a source power, it's going to be the most natural. It's basically your starting point. So it's going to have the most natural at-home quality to it. Next, we have the power of Zai. Zai gives your cheeks a certain quality to it that we call stone face, which refers to the neutralizing mode of expression. When you do stone face, then it has a curtaining effect. And this is basically the dampening of warmness that's coming from your Ji. As a Nyy'zai, then Zai is a minor momentum power, and so as a baseline, then the cooling of Stoneface is going to be something that is more natural than the warming emotive expression. And so something to look out for is that stone face is going to be a baseline quality. It will not overtake the eyes, of course. The dancing eyes of Nyi will always be peering through them, but it will be a significantly prominent cue. Zai is something you can also hear in the voice for many mojos, especially ones that have Zai as their momentum powers, anytime Zai is above their Ji. It won't be a tower tunnel voice like it is for the Zai Nyi, but anytime you have Zai above Ji, then there's a certain tonal quality to it. There's a certain tonal quality that comes from the Ji articulation kind of having to penetrate through a Zai mesh. You can see yourself doing Zai when you disengage from the environment and your eyes look to the right, when you shrug to the right, when you do rictuses to the right or grimaces to the right, and when you sway to the right. You'll notice all of those cues are going to come with the neutralizing of emotive expression. It's going to come with stone face. And Zai is minor momentum for you, so it is natural state. Zai is minor momentum for you, so it is going to have a natural state quality to it. It's a tandem power, and it's connected to your Nyi, so it's going to have a very unique quality to you as a Nyy'zai that's going to distinguish you from other mojos that also have Zai. Next, we have your power of Ji. Ji users have something called aware expression, and aware expression as a cue refers to the fact that the Ji users, all of them are actually aware of what their faces are doing. Ji gives you a certain social awareness, which means not only are you aware of what your face is doing, but also aware of how it's coming off. This is something that Ji kind of needs to have in order for it to work, in order to actually move dynamics in a values sort of way. So the kind of articulation has is called warm articulation, meaning the Ji will actually use its emotiveness in communicating, as a part of articulating, using it to kind of move the people that it's talking to. Warm articulation, while it does use its emotiveness and tones and inflection to, move people, it does it in different ways. Ones that we call butter and baleful. Butter is the more friendly, kind of shepherding, moving people in the right direction, while baleful is more like showing disapproval or upsetness or anger. As a Nyy'zai, your Ji is going to be very unique to you. It's, first of all, an offside power. It's minor modulation, and so this is actually going to be an altered state power. While you do often see Nyy'zais doing a lot of Ji expressiveness, you'll notice that it's altered state because it has a certain localized nature to it. It doesn't actually bypass the midline, which we'll talk a bit later. So it is localized to below the midline and mainly in the mouth region. So it has kind of a Cheshire Cat quality to it. Next, we have your power of Vai. Vai, the use of Vai can be noted when you disengage from the environment and your eyes look to the left, or when you tilt your head to the left, or when you squint. These are all going to be uses of Vai. They're all going to have kind of a concerned quality to them. Now, Vai is also your major modulation. And so when you access your Vai as a Nyy'zai, it's going to be the most altered state. So it's going to have the most dramatic curbing of energy for you as a Nyy'zai. So you'll notice that it's going to have the underwater quality to it, as well as curbing as you're kind of going into Vai and reaching far for a detail of some kind. Those were all first gear cues. Now we're going to get into second gear cues, which all refer to the energy fields, which we talked about in the human design episode. Yin gesturing basically means palms facing inward, closer to the body, closer to personal space. Side-to-side motions, circular motions, they have more of a collaborative kind of look to them. There's less tension in the hands or in the wrists. They do not have the power arc that you're going to see with yang gesturing. And there is less energy that's going into them, so they're going to have a more kind of limpness to them, and they also drop rigidity sooner. Yang gesturing is palms outward, further out into impersonal space, moving around, more of like a director-conductor kind of quality to them, as they're basically used for moving dynamics or influencing people, and generally have more rigidity into them, and will do more of the yang power arc. Now as a Nyy'zai, you have natural state yin gesturing. So your yin gesturing is going to look much more natural to you, and altered state yang gesturing. So even when you do yang gesturing, then it is going to be the yang gesturing of a Nyy'zai. So it'll be less comfortable out in personal space. It'll be less comfortable with taking on the rigidity, the power arcness to them. When accessing your Ni and Zai, then you're going to notice kind of an automatic activating of the yin gesturing. And when you start doing your Ji and Vai, then you'll notice kind of an activating of the yang gesturing, although it's going to be unique to you as a Nyy'zai. Your yin gesturing is going to be specifically from having Ni over Zai, and your yang gesturing is going to be specifically because it's modulation, it's going to be altered state, as well as from having Ji above Vai. As a Nyy'zai, you also have a unique form of gesturing, something called Cool Gumby Claw. And this is something that is going to be seen in both you doing yin gesturing and yang gesturing. It's expressed in every single thing you do, whether it's momentum and modulation. And it's completely unique to you as a Nyy'zai. Only Nyy'zai do Cool Gumby Claw. All mojos have their form of yin gesturing and yang gesturing. They also have their unique form of gesturing that's given to them from their unique mojo configuration. For you, yours is Cool Gumby Claw. As an adaptive mojo, you're also going to have a natural approachability, and this is because the adaptive powers are innately more approachable. The stimulus power of your Ni is actually looking to devour information. It's interested in that. And your tower power of Zai is also looking to react to discernments. So the reactive nature of the adaptive powers makes them more naturally approachable. Ji and Vai are also good at boundary setting, and so as a Nyy'zai, then you are going to be using your Ji and your Vai to set boundaries. However, since you're adaptive, then you're modulating with your Ji and your Vai, and so setting boundaries is not going to have the natural quality to you as it would a directive mojo that was using those powers. So once you learn how to read mojo, you'll be able to notice when a Nyy'zai is doing either of these because of the way that it has a natural state quality or altered state quality. As a Nyy'zai, then you have Ni as a source power. Ni is an objective perception. So as a Nyy'zai, you are an objective mojo. Objective mojos have something called unhooded eyes. Unhooded eyes refers to the openness quality to their eyes. They are more open and kind of forward oriented. Unhooded eyes doesn't refer to, it has nothing to do with size of the eyes, doesn't mean you have big eyes or anything. Just log that away, don't even think about that. It's nothing to do with anything. Size has nothing to do with anything. It just has to do with the way that your eyes are oriented. There is a natural kind of forward orientation to them, not in a directive sort of way where it's forward moving, kind of forward boundary setting, the jutting forward, but in the way that your eyes, which are kind of like your drinking in of stimulus, your drinking in apparatus, how they kind of want to push up against the glass to get like the closest look that they possibly can and drink in as much stimulus as they can get. As an objective, you're also going to have natural animation, and this is because the objective powers, movement is natural state to them, and so for a Ni mojo, then it's going to be this bobbling kind of movement that's going to be natural state to you. So it's going to give you a natural animation quality. Refinement, on the other hand, this is something that would only be native to a subjective mojo. So for you, refinement is actually going to be altered state. Refinement referred to holding still, basically making sure you don't move. Next, we have the perception and discernment corridors. As a Nyy'zai, you are perception lead, and this is because as a Ni alpha, your perception is actually ranked higher than your discernment corridor. So this manifests in two ways. One, it makes it so your eyes, they will actually always be kind of the dominant signal that you're seeing when looked at you. With the perception lead mojos, it's their eyes that kind of pop first, that have the leading quality when actually looking at them. With the discernment mojos, on the other hand, it's their mouth that pops first. So other mojos that are similar to the Nyy'zai, like myself, as Zaini, for example, we have the Ji of our mouth that pops first. That's what the eyes are kind of artistically drawn to first. Whereas the Nyy'zai, it's the eyes that stick out the most prominently. In addition to that, the cooling that's coming from their Zai discernment power, their logic-based cooling, that is not actually going to go into or overtake the eyes. With a mojo like me, for example, a Zai Ni that actually has Zai over Ni, then you'll actually see the Zai kind of frost over the Ni perception. But with the Nyy'zai, there will always be the Ni dancing eyes kind of peering out, and the cooling goes at the cheeks and doesn't actually go into the eyes. So this gives the Nyy'zai a quality called a bifield face, which is something that the lead perceivers have, meaning there is kind of a segmenting between their eyes and above that with everything below, so their cheeks and their mouth. And there's kind of a noticeable separating between the two because their discernment powers, either of them, but in this case, since they're a logic-based mojo, it's the cooling, doesn't go into the eyes. So it kind of stops right here, giving this cool psychic bandit sort of look. So the Nyy'zai have the psychic bandit, cagey mind look to them, which is coming from actually having an interpretive perception power over a logic-based power. Now the perception corridor, then there are two channels. There's the interpretive channel and there's the literal channel. As a Nyy'zai, that means you have your Ni, which is your interpretive perception, over your Vai, which is your literal perception. This makes you an interpretive mojo. So as an interpretive mojo, you're going to have a syncopated rhythm, meaning you're a certain rhythm that is native to the second conversation of the interpretive channel. The syncopated rhythm refers to how the interpretive mojo are natively listening to, natively aware of the second conversation, something called second conversation, which refers to basically the conversations that, the unseen conversations specifically, that are kind of happening over just the literal now. The concern of your bipolar will cause this syncopated rhythm to take a dip and will curb the syncopated energy. So when you're modulating with your Vai, you'll notice the syncopatedness dropping a bit, becoming a bit more concerned. Although what you should understand is that this Vai kind of dropping is intermittent and it doesn't actually overtake the dancing-eyed signal of Ni or the constant syncopated rhythm. It'll cause it to drop, but it doesn't actually overtake it. So the Ni never really goes away. It can be curved, but it doesn't go away. So Vai never overtakes, but it causes drops in energy, and Ni is baseline, and it increases the syncopated energy. There are logic-based discernments and values-based discernments. For you as a Nyy'zai, you have Zai as your logic-based discernment power, and Ji as your values-based discernment power. Although you are a logic-based mojo, because you have Zai above your Ji. When you use your values-based power of Ji, then this is going to cause a warming in your face. Like I said before, the warm articulation that comes with Ji. And so there will be an increase of your emotive expressioning. The more you use your Ji to smile or frown or give any other kinds of emotional cues, that these will increase the expressiveness and warming in your face. When you use your Zai, then there will be a dampening effect, a neutralizing of your emotive expressioning. As a Nyy'zai, you are logic-based, so your Ji warming is going to be altered state and it's not going to be as comfortable. And there's going to be an inherent desire to cool your face, as the cooling that's coming from Zai is natural state to you. So because of the fact that Ji is modulation, then it'll take effort, but in addition to that, it will be localized below the midline. The midline is right about here, just under the nose and across the cheekbones. So your Ji is mainly going to be localized in this area, and it's not going to be able to readily pass that midline. The baseline kind of energy for it will kind of cause it to stay here. So it's just like I said before, where the modulation powers can never really overtake the momentum powers. And so, you know, the warming doesn't readily overtake the midline. There's always going to be kind of the unflappability of Zai just under the surface. There are also vocal cues that you give off as a Nyy'zai. The midline is not just something that's physically located on the face, but you can also perceive the midline in different places. For example, it can be heard in the voice. The butter and baleful of zhi can be heard in the voice, in tonality and inflections. These are the kinds of things that like butter and baleful are used for. But it's always going to sound like it's pushing through the zai that's over it. You'll also be able to hear cooling and neutralizing in your voice too. As you do more zai, then it'll have a dampening effect on the tonality of your voice that you can hear. Now we're getting into third gear cues, which we're starting to get more tacit now. So we're taking in a lot of information at once. We're taking something called configuration of cues, which are basically a bunch of cues happening at the same time. So as you look at samples of Nyy'zai, you're getting a taste of Nyy'zai-ness. Anytime you look at still frames of Nyy'zai, you're seeing configurations of cues, all at the same time. But all of these cues are unique to the Nyy'zai and the Nyy'zai only. Over time, you'll get used to seeing this specific flavor of conflagration. Then when you see Nyy'zais doing whatever they're doing, you won't necessarily need to have to kind of just focus on what their eyes are doing or just focus on what their mouths are doing. You'll be able to kind of just look at them as a whole and be able to recognize that's a Nyy'zai, because the totality of their cues all together will jump out at you as this distinct signal. So all of the cues that we went over in first and second gear are all being combined into third gear, but there's also the aspect that it has that are coming from the momentum powers of Ni and Zai. Ni gives off the distinct signal of buoyancy, which is a signal that you're going to be giving off all of the time. So it's a question of how much of it is infused with the unflappability of your Zai, and how much of those signals are being modulated by caring and concern of your Zhi and Vai. A good way to start seeing distinct signals is to start seeing lots of other Nyy'zai. And you'll start to see that maybe a lot of them are different from you in a lot of ways, having different riffs or game styles, but they actually do have the same cues that you do. So just keep drinking in mojos of your kind, and you'll start to learn more and more about how your soul is designed. A good way to go about this is to compare and contrast your mojo to other mojos that are similar to you in design. So for you as a Nyy'zai, that would be the Nyy'zai and the Zai Ni. As you see cues that are similar to yours but not quite the same, it'll help you distinguish your own energy from the energies of others. Then from there, you can also start taking still pictures of the mojos that you're studying and build them up into collage books. This is a very rewarding way to have a book full of pictures of your mojo, and you can see your mojo doing all kinds of cool things, and you can see basically a vast range of yourself, and you begin to really geek out on how cool you are. You are a magnificent creature, and you are part of a species that has these in them. And so as you study the Nyy'zai, then you begin to see the tribe that was built to have these possibility gatherers. And without them, we'd be lost. So you are super important, and when you start to see that Nyy'zai in general are super important to the human species, then you can start to see yourself as a Nyy'zai as a being of epic importance to the story of humanity, which you are. Know yourself, grow yourself, save the world.